Hi, Beverly Gale here again to talk to you a little more about coping with blindness. When I started this video series, I felt that I had a lot to contribute to share with you about some of the wonderful programs and tools that I have had along the way to going blind. The more I got into it, the more I realized that I wanted to share something more with you, and that was some of what we are told about macular degeneration, we being primarily senior citizens, is very limited information based on what I've gone through. And I wanted to have a video that really deals with some of the things that the doctors don't tell you what is there and don't necessarily prepare you for your journey into blindness. As an example, I talk in one of my videos about the early symptoms with the blobs that I saw in my eyes. The more I began to think about it, the more I realized that those blobs were infinitesimal bleeding behind the eyes that just didn't show up in a ocular examination by a doctor without the right tools. And I thought maybe I wouldn't have had this problem so much if earlier on it was diagnosed. But even having said that, what they didn't prepare me for was some of the symptoms that I have had within the past year. Now, for the last 8 years, I have been under doctor's care, and I have been getting shots in either the right or the left eye, depending on what time of year it is and how my eyes are doing. But I've experienced some very strange things over this past year, and they were frightening things. And I want to share them with you because I had the faith in my doctor that I felt I could talk to him about this. I basically went to him when I began to see odd things. As an example, I was at an outdoor concert, and I was sitting for a long period of time listening to the music, and I'm listening to the music, and I'm focusing primarily on a chair maybe 20 feet away of a woman with what I thought was a rather unusual looking shawl. And as I continued to focus on it, and then I moved my head away from the shawl, and I brought my head back, and to my surprise and shock, the shawl was one color and one design. But what I was seeing was a multicolor design on the shawl, and kind of thought, just like when I had first saw my blobs, and I was fascinated by them, and I didn't think anything of them because when I woke up, those blobs that sort of disappeared when the light came on, again, I had the same kind of fascination with this. So as I'm listening to this concert, I am moving my eyes away from her, and then I'm moving them back, and I'm seeing a honeycomb shape, an octagonal honeycomb shape forming on the back of her sweater on the chair. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. And so I continued to do it. And then when I got home, I didn't think about it anymore, and the shapes disappeared. And then, I don't know, probably it was a few days later, maybe a week, when I talked to my daughter and I told her about it. And then I'm sitting down at my kitchen table, and these shapes popped up again. And I was fascinated with them because they were perfect octagonals, just like looking at a honeycomb, a beehive honeycomb. And this went off and on for a couple of weeks. And now, as I thought about it, I was a little concerned because these things were popping up when I wasn't expecting them. Now, at this time, I could still drive a little bit, and I was concerned that it would cause problems with my driving. So I went back to my ophthalmologist, and after talking to my family, I gave him a description of what I was seeing. And what he said to me, and which surprised me, was that this is part of the disease. And I thought, what? He said it's called a hallucination. Well, I thought it might be a hallucination, but I never thought it might be part of the disease. And I got to thinking about that when I'm talking about early symptoms, and I didn't put it in my other video. And then I thought, well, had it been a different scenario, I am 70, almost 74. Had I been 84 or in that range, I might have been afraid to talk to my doctor. The last thing I would want would be to be told I was getting Alzheimer's or that I was having hallucinations, and perhaps I would be put in a home. It can be very frightening when something happens to you and you don't know what's causing it, or even be afraid perhaps to mention it. So I was talking to another friend of mine who has scotoma, and that's a different type of a problem. It's a neurological problem, but a neurological ophthalmologist handles it. And it is a problem where lights and all different kinds of colored lights and auras appear. And she was telling me that she's had this off and on her whole life, and she had gone to a doctor and he didn't know what the heck she was talking about. I thought, well, that's terrible. He should have known. He's an ophthalmologist. Well, bottom line was I got more curious, and so I went online the other day, and I learned that this was common in people with advanced macular degeneration, or someone with glaucoma problems or cataract problems. And this syndrome is called Charles Bonnet syndrome. So I thought about this. I wanted to put this in a video because it wasn't just the syndrome itself. It was the fear of not knowing what it was and why it was happening. Just like the fear I had, and I talked about this in one of my other videos, about the inability for me to be able to read. Not because I can't see the words, but I was articulating it the other day to my friend, and I said to her, it was like hieroglyphics. And then I said, no, scratch that. It's like French. I can read lines of French. Je ne sais quoi. That doesn't mean that I understand what I read. Hieroglyphics are symbols. Je ne sais quoi is in an alphabet that I recognize. Well, I am having that problem right now. And it is very annoying and very disturbing, I guess, because it's affecting my ability to read important documents. Now, I have already figured out a way that when my eyes are not working, I can scan something into the computer, and I bought a new computer which has using my fingers, I can scan back and forth and make the print larger. And on one of my other videos, I even talked about that. Sometimes I have the print this big, but sometimes it doesn't really matter if the print is large, if it's not connecting to my brain. So in talking with another friend and talking about these videos, she was telling me, because I told her, I was beginning to sound everything out. And so I would actually begin to physically sound out a sentence, and then it would make sense. And I was just thinking it would make sense because I sounded it out. And she said, no, it's making sense because as you're losing one sense, your other senses are picking up the difference. And even though your eye-mind connection isn't working well, your ear-mind connection is working fine. So if you read the sentence, you take this supplement 3 times a day, and that's not working in your mind's eye when you're reading it. When you read it out loud, your brain says, oh yeah, I understand what that is. And this was a tremendous breakthrough for me. And I thought, I want to get these videos out here because I am trying to tell you and share with you things the doctors don't tell you about. Again, one of them that I talked about in my other videos was the dominant eye. My dominant eye is the eye that bled first. My secondary eye was in constant battle with my first eye. In other words, I was having tremendous pain in my left eye because I was so using it so much. My eye looked like I had a case of pink eye. And my eyes were red and sore for weeks while it battled with my right eye, who was still trying to be a dominant eye, and it was blind. And finally, over a course of time, it settled down enough that I no longer had the eye strain that I had. But no doctor told me I was going to have to deal with this. This was something that doctors don't tell you. And so this whole video series is about my journey, but my experiences, but also it's about some of the things that might happen to you that are terribly disturbing. But if you hear about them in these videos, it will be less frightening because you realize you may have they may call it a hallucination, but it doesn't mean you have schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, or any number of other types of illnesses that would perhaps cause hallucinations. So this is a reason that I wanted to make this video. I wanted to assuage the fears of those of us that are starting to go blind. Yes, we have a lot we have to deal with, but it's better to know than have the knowledge of knowing what's out there than live in the ignorance when the doctors don't share it with you. So I wanted to just say, I welcome you. I welcome your comments. If you find ways that make life easier, that you have found tricks of the trade, oh, I do this because this makes my life easier, I want you to share it with me. And I will share as much as I can with you. And as it comes up, a new video will come out. So please keep looking and watching for my new videos, because I'm hoping that the information that I want to give to you will make your life happier, will make you less anxious. I now know why my mother was the most anxious person on the planet. Her anxiety level, I never understood it as a kid. I just thought she was high-strung. Well, now I understand it wasn't being high-strung. It was going blind. And the frustrations she had to deal with, and nobody told her what to expect. And it only made me appreciate her more when she was able to go back to school and work through some of these things that I'm working through and get a degree. And I just hope that she's looking down on me now and being proud of the fact that I'm getting through these things and that I am able to maybe share them with some of you, and it will help you as well. So until next time, I hope that you'll tune in and let me know what your thoughts are. And if you like me on Facebook. I'm going to I have a channel. You can subscribe to it or not, but you'll be able to find these videos because I'm putting in enough keywords that they will pop up. So until next time, I'm Beverly Gale. Bye for now.